Yo, today I'm going to show you how I installed my Japspeed Decat manifold into my IS200. Let's get on with it then. And here it is, so shiny. And here's the old one, so ugly. Alright, I should say that the reason I'm doing this is so that I can install a supercharger in the future. I should also say that this is the last piece of the puzzle that I need to have a full exhaust system. The catback and the sports cat are already in. If you want to see me installing the other parts of the exhaust, I'll leave some links in the description below. Alright, so here I am the night before. I'm going to take the original manifold off. I've already took these heat shield off. There's just 3 bolts in each. What I'm going to do using some WD-40 is just spray the bolts here so that it penetrates through and makes it easier to take off tomorrow. Okay, so I want to see if I can try and get this out without having to unlink the steering here, this universal joint. As you can see, it's kind of in the way, but let's see if I can get it out before having to undo it first. Alright, so I think the first thing I'm going to do is disconnect the O2 sensors. There's one here and there's one down there, and the cable leads just to here. Before you start, disconnect your negative battery terminal and then you can disconnect your O2 sensors. Okay, so I've decided not to take them out yet. I've just disconnected them. I'll take the manifold out and then I'll try and get the O2 sensors out because they're really quite stuck. It's time to try and get these nuts off. I'm not going to use an impact wrench because I don't want to snap the studs, so I'm going to use a breaker bar instead. Just to let you know, you're going to need a 14mm socket. Once you've broken the nuts loose, you can just use a ratchet with an extension to finish them off. Alright, so they came off way easier than I thought. You might have a little bit more trouble than me, but mine weren't that rusted. So good luck. Maybe that WD-40 yesterday was why they came off so easily. I recommend you do that the night before, just to make sure, otherwise you might have trouble. Anyway, now that the nuts are off, I'm going to jack the car up and disconnect the manifold from the other end. Remember, when you're working on cars, don't solely rely on the jack or the stands. Always use both, just in case. Right, so another reason I'm changing the manifold is because this part of the flange on this side is worn away on the inside and there's an exhaust leak here. So yeah, I've been putting paste on, you can see it there. I've been putting paste on like every month. And it's starting to get really annoying, so after I change this I won't have that problem anymore. Alright, so I've tried to take the manifold out of the top and I've tried to take it from under the car, and it's not going to happen. So there's a bolt here and there's a bolt here that I'm going to undo and try to remove this section. I'm going to mark it up first. Line it up either side so that I know where it's supposed to be. Alright, so I turn my steering wheel all the way to the left so it's upside down, which turns this around so that you can access the bolt. So remember to mark this up before you undo it. I used a white paint pen like this. This is just so that you can line it up back where it's supposed to be, otherwise your steering will be off. I also marked it at the bottom as well. So you're going to need a 12mm socket for this. For removing the bottom one, I'm using a swivel extension, so it just makes it easier. Okay, I'm spraying this with WD-40 to loosen it up. Hopefully that paint stays on. Alright, so you definitely want to turn it around so it's facing this way, so that the 2 cracks are this way, because it enables you to hit this from the bottom. There's not a lot of space at all, but if you just keep hitting and hitting, eventually after like 16 million times, it'll finally move up. Even after removing the steering joint, it was really difficult to get this out. Just carry on twisting it, carry on turning it in every way that you can, and you will eventually get it out. Just be persistent. That was a horrible experience. Alright, so to loosen this one, I used a pair of vice grips and then the pole from my jack. And it came off super easy. Remove the old gaskets and you'll notice that it's really quite dirty underneath there. What you want to do is get yourself some type of brake cleaner, carb cleaner, something like that. Spray it on a towel and clean it down as much as you can before you put the new gaskets on. Included with the manifold, you'll get 3 gaskets, 3 nuts and 3 bolts. You'll reuse the nuts to connect the manifold to the engine. It's pretty obvious where these go, so I'm not going to explain. Before fitting the gaskets, I used Permatex copper spray. You just spray it on both sides. Make sure that you shake in between, otherwise it will clog it. You can get this from Amazon or eBay. Then simply push them on. Next, I put the O2 sensors in. Just using copper grease here, just put it around the thread. And I recommend that you don't put this one in first, otherwise it's going to be extremely difficult to get the steering joint back in. So leave this one out, and for the next one, this one, you can put this in right now. This one requires an angled adapter. You have to use this, otherwise it won't fit. Then the O2 sensor just plugs directly into this. Once you've got your O2 sensors in place and your gaskets are on, you can put the manifold in. Finally on. It was not easy. This was the main issue for me. So there's a bracket down there and there's 2 bolts underneath. So the easiest way to get around this problem is to remove this nut right here. That enables the bracket to swivel so that the hole will line up. And as you'll see here, the hole is lined up. Next, I sprayed the gasket with the copper spray before I put it in. And as you can see, everything fits fine. You can actually take this bracket off and try and bend it back if you still want 2 bolts in, but hey, this is the easiest way. And it feels super solid. The next step is to put your steering joint back in and make sure it's tightened up well, because you do not want your steering to come loose. And doing this when the O2 sensor is in is really difficult, so that's why I told you to do this last. The torque settings for these nuts are 40 Newton meters or 30 pounds-foot of torque. Don't forget to reconnect your battery and tighten it up. And that's pretty much it. Just double check everything and you're ready to go. Okay, fingers crossed, I'm gonna start it up. Well, it's always a relief when it starts first time. All you have to do now is check for leaks, make sure there's no check engine light, and you can go for a drive. So I didn't get any footage of the car from the outside and what it sounds like from the outside. I'm sorry. but you're about to see the reason why. Go. A lot of people don't have this issue. Just because I had it doesn't mean you're gonna get it, but just keep it in mind. Now, there are ways that you can solve this problem. The first is to splice two O2 sensors into one hole, the front hole, the one that doesn't need the angled adapter. The second method is to leave the bolt in the hole that needs the adapter and tighten it up, leave it alone. Then you can re-weld another bung right here. Another reason that I didn't keep this manifold is because I've actually decided not to fit a supercharger now. I'm gonna buy an IS300 because of a lot of reasons, which I won't explain now. But it is also extremely loud. I mean, very, very loud. If you have the rest of the Japspeed system, and mine wasn't even decatted, mine had the sports cat in. You've been warned. It is very, very loud, especially upon cold start, and it just wasn't really the right thing for me. I needed something that was a lot quieter than that. If it's your daily car, I would strongly recommend you don't get this manifold with the rest of the exhaust system. If you have a silencer on your catback, then absolutely you can go for it, but otherwise I wouldn't recommend it. This manifold is not really designed for that IS200. Despite what it says, that O2 sensor bung is in the wrong place. Anyway, thank you for watching the video. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.